Hi everybody, this is Chris Maxwell with the Fire Me channel, and today our video is on being pet poor. So a lot of people get pets, but they really don't understand the full cost of ownership to having a pet. So today we're going to walk through a bunch of the expenses, and a lot of people are really surprised at how much their pet actually ends up costing them. All right, so the cost of ownership. So first you're going to have an adoption fee, or if you buy a purebred or any other dog from breeder, it's going to be at least $1,000 or more, and could be several thousand if it is a purebred animal. So that's a major upfront expense, but it's a one-time expense, so a lot of people can get past that. Then you're going to have vet bills. You're going to have things like pet insurance, surgery potentially for your pet, food, kennel costs if you want to travel and you can't take your pet. So if you want to go on vacation to, say, Hawaii, but you can't take your animal with you, you're going to be paying for it to stay at a kennel for a couple weeks if you can't get someone to look after it for you. Then you have grooming and time. Now, a lot of people don't put a dollar value on your time, but your time is actually worth something. So that's another consideration if you are going to buy a pet, is really understand how much your time's worth, how much you're putting into it, and is what you're getting back worth it to you. And most people will say it is, but time is definitely a big thing to consider. And then there's all kinds of other costs of ownership, but those are kind of the main ones. All right, so one-time expenses. So spade and neutering, a dog versus a cat, you're looking at $145 to $200. The initial medical exam for a dog is $70 on average, and for a cat it's around $130. I really don't understand why the cats are more expensive than the dogs, but they are. Collars and leashes, so the dog and versus the cat, you're looking at $10 to $30, and that would be for a cheaper accessory. You can obviously spend hundreds of dollars if you so desire. Litter box for your cat, $25. Scratching posts, another $30. Crate, so depending on the size of your dog, you're going to be looking at approximately $95. It could be more, it could be a bit less, but that's a good average. And then you're going to have a carrying crate. So this is so if you travel, you can take it with you. And for a dog, a cat, you're looking at $40 to $60. My experience has been these have been much more expensive than that, but I think this is probably on the very low end of things from what I found. And then if you want a dog and you want to give it some kind of obedience training, some other kind of training, you're looking at least $100, $110 plus, depending on how much work they need to do, or how much work you need to do with your dog to train it, if that's something that you are going to do. So the total one-time cost for your dog, you're looking at over $500, and for a cat, you're looking at about $365. So one-time expenses are, manageable, but it is several $100s. All right, now annual expenses. Now this is where things start getting a little bit additive here. So annual expenses, food for your dog, the average is actually $120, and for your cat it's $130. Now on the dog side, maybe I'm just thinking that this is low because I'm used to medium to larger breeds, but $120 doesn't seem like it would go very far in terms of dog food. I don't think I've ever had a dog that we've been able to feed it for $120 a year by any means. Litter for the cat. If you have a cat, on average, it's going to be about $200 a year for litter. Toys and treats. Dogs, they say $55. Cats, $175. Now, cats, they say, are higher because cat owners are much more likely to give their cats all kinds of stuff like catnip and all these other little mousy kind of toys, and cats are inherently harder on some toys because they scratch them and all the rest of it. I would have thought, though, that the dog toys would be a little more expensive than this, but this is what they say the average is. So your total annual cost for your dog is around $700, and for your cat it's just over $700. So the total first year cost of ownership for your dog is $1,270. For a cat, it's approximately $1,070, and that does not include the initial purchase price or the adoption fee. So your annual expenses in your first year is over $1,000. That's very expensive and a lot of money if you don't have much. I don't know if I'd even recommend getting a pet if you're lower income, just because it is a huge expense and you do need to look after these animals. So there is a bunch of other considerations with owning a pet as well. So if you're renting an apartment or a house, you're likely going to have another deposit or a higher deposit on your house for damage because you do have this pet in there. Homeowners rarely let pets into their place if there's not some kind of a premium on the damage deposit, because everyone's worried about their house getting wrecked. Kennels costs when you travel, we had mentioned this one before. And the other thing to consider too is this the right time in your life to get a pet? So if you're a young person just starting out, you plan on doing a bunch of traveling, seeing the world, you got a new career, maybe you're just starting a family, you got a lot going on in your life, it might not be the best time to buy a pet, but maybe, you know, a few years down the road, you know, your kids are a bit older, you're settled down in your career, you're not really traveling the world like you once were when you were younger. Maybe it's a good time to get a pet at that point, but your life circumstances really should play a big consideration in whether you get a pet or not. Now, the other thing to consider before you get a pet, figure out how your monthly expenses are going to affect your budget. So like we were mentioning before, if you're filthy rich, it's not going to matter. You're going to be able to pay for this thing, no problem. But if you're just starting out, or if you're lower income, or even if you're middle class with a lot of debt, this is going to be another significant burden on your finances and your budget. So it's just another thing to take into consideration on how that's actually going to how that it's actually going to affect your family finances, and can you actually legitimately afford the pet that you're looking at. The other thing you should do as well is set aside an emergency fund for your pet. So if you buy a dog or a cat and it gets sick and it needs surgery, or it needs some kind of other veterinary care that you weren't expecting and that isn't relatively expected through the normal course of business, you should have some kind of emergency fund set aside so that you can pay that bill when it rolls in. A lot of people don't consider this, but I know this has happened to a few people I know where they've gotten a massive vet bill and then they have no way of paying it, so then it's a huge financial burden for them. And you know, the other thing too to consider, if you're not going to do that, know what you're going to do if you're faced with a life-saving vet bill that you cannot afford. So I had a personal friend that was in the situation. They had a dog that was very, very sick, and the vet bill was going to be $10,000 to do surgery for their pet. Now, in their case, it was a very tough pill to swallow. They elected to do the surgery. Fortunately, they could afford it. However, a lot of people aren't in that position where they can actually come up with an extra $5,000, $10,000 out of pocket on short notice to actually pay for something like that. So if your animal does get really sick, know what you're really willing to do. Like, will you be willing to put that animal down if required, if you can't afford to pay the vet bill for it? So that's a really tough one, though. I know it's like these pets become part of your family, and it's really tough to make that decision, especially if it's the only reason you're putting it down is because you can't afford it. But really know what you're getting into before you take that on. And that kind of goes to the last point. Understand the responsibility you are taking on. So this is a living animal. You do need to look after this thing. You do need to take it to the vet. You do need to exercise it. You need to invest time, all the rest of it. You do need to make sure these animals are cared for. So really know what you're getting into before you take on to a pet, because they do get expensive and things are going to come up. It's just inevitable. All right, so thanks for watching this, guys. Let me know what you think about this video, and make sure to like the video and subscribe. And I would love to know what your experiences are with pets and how much it actually costs you guys I know some of these figures, they're up for debate. I tried to find a good balanced average from my research online, but I do realize you can own a pet for much less, and I do also know that it can cost you significantly more depending how much money you want to put into them. But yeah, leave me a comment below, and I'd love to know what your guys' experiences are for pet expenses. Have a great day, guys.